Fourth, maybe a more pragmatic answer is that currently all of our eggs are in one basket. Our whole species is here on Earth. And of course, we should work to solve the problems here. But in the event that we can't control every problem, I think it would be essential to the survival of our species to have humans populate and live on other planets.
See. Mr. David, the Mars Planetary Scientist, Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics from the University of Colorado Boulder, thank you very much. That is a lot of information to juice up.
Yeah, and I love that phrase, to venture forth. It kind of encapsulates the excitement of the whole thing.
We embark on a journey as
Absolutely.
well. I love the sophisticated vocabulary. But now we've got more guests coming up on this coverage, ladies and gentlemen. But let's now put our eyes on the guest with us here in the studio, Fahad Al-Mhiri. Fahad, of course, you've been, of course, hearing it from different guests, from different scientists. Everyone has a look into this historic moment. But let me ask you this. The launch, what is the time now? Do you got eyes on the time? Right?
We are coming up to about an hour or so, just under an hour, I think.
Under an hour for the 10 most important seconds in 2020. Can you tell us, how do you feel? How do you think people feel? How Japan feel right now?
I mean, the way I feel right now is, just sheer excitement. I'm watching His Excellency Bilhol, the team over there at Tanegashima. I guess you'd say they're over the moon, But I think this is all, the 6 years that the team have been working towards this has just been phenomenal. As you heard,
up to about an hour or so, just under an hour, I think.
Under an hour for the 10 most important seconds in 2020. Can you tell us, how do you feel? How do you think people feel? How Japan feel right now?
The UAE go out and decide to buy a satellite. Really wanted to make sure this is something where the UAE nationals learn from. We're not just buying something off the shelf. And so the millions of hours that are put into that is just, all coming to this point right now where this is all, the 6 years, information is going to be coming out. And as mentioned, this information is not just arbitrary. This is really information being looked and sought out for in the space community today. I think, the teams that were over in Japan, they've been there, as I mentioned, since April. I'm sure they miss their families, but, these guys are heroes to us. The group of 17 been there since April, haven't seen their families, haven't seen their kids, and they've just really wanted to make sure, dedicated their whole time now to making sure the success is there. With the delays that have happened with weather, that's part of the natural launch campaign. All coming to this point right now. All of these things, the engineers look through this, they anticipate these things. We have a window, calculations are pre-calculated on a daily basis, anticipating, a disturbance due to the weather or a delay due to that. So, from my side, being here at the studio, it's a little different. You don't have the air of the whole team around you, but I know at the UAE Space Agency, we have a team over there. They have a gathering put together, and I'm sure, they're all celebrating right now as well. And yeah, and the whole team's over at the MBRSC are doing the same.
You mentioned the delay. For us, we were sort of ready to gearing up to go on air. We're very excited about it and gearing up again. And we totally understand the situation means that you have to have that delay. I'm thinking the team over there, slightly more cooler, a bit more ready, and actually maybe potentially expecting the delay to have taken place.
Yes, honestly, it was quite funny. It was probably around the 18th. It was actually just the weekend before that I was asked to join the EMM Media Committee. So, I was mostly working with the project director, Amran Sharaf, every other day or so. I communicate with him, make sure things are going fine, and reporting up. And so, we were pretty much done and ready. And I was asked then to join the media team. And I could sense the excitement, and the positivity and the whole push on that aspect. I was watching the weather all the time and thinking, guys, we need to make sure we're planning as well that, there could be a delay coming up here, And so, like you said, the engineers years, that was expected, you know. Yeah, these things happen, you know. As His Excellency Bilal mentioned, SpaceX, it was like 10 minutes before a launch, they decided to pull out just because of weather reasons. But luckily, you know, we, MHI, you know, they're the ones who are responsible for this launch. So they're the ones who are overseeing this launch, and they're the ones responsible to get, you know, a successful the right track and right line into Mars. So they're taking that risk, and so for them, it's a huge responsibility, and we need to respect those decisions. You know, we can't know where, you know, we said it was going to be the 15th, so it's going to be the 15th. No, there's way too many variables when it comes to launching anything into space. I mean, you know, the Earth is like a magnet. If gravity was probably 5–10% stronger than it is, we still wouldn't have the technology to leave Earth today.
Wow.
I mean, you know, if you actually look at the launch vehicles out there today, around 85 to 91% is fuel. Think about
weight,
that.
that's the weight.
That is the weight of the fuel. So you're looking at 91% of the launch vehicle is fuel. And that means 9% is metal, structure, tanks, engines, people, maybe, everything else. So imagine a little bit stronger. We still wouldn't have the technology to get out and get into low Earth orbit or even have satellites around us today.
Absolutely.
You know, Fed, 10 years ago, if someone would have come and told me, you know, in 10 years, we're going to be going to Mars, I'd actually stop the guy and tell him, what are you talking about? But, I mean, now with the information that you're telling me, I mean, think of this. Mars's gravitational pull, if you compare it to Earth, it is 38% weaker.
Yeah, it's about a third.
Which means if for one of the projects that are one of the missions that are there actually on the ground of Mars is a rover called Curiosity. Do you think that the rover's rotation requires the mathematics of its own in terms of acceleration? Otherwise, it could flung itself on the planet? Rhetorically.
Oh, no. You know, I wouldn't go that far. You know, you do, it's a third of the gravity of Earth, but you see, they actually use, you know, landing because the problem is you can't use parachutes, really. You know, they're not really that effective because the atmosphere is also just a sixth, I believe, of what we have here on Earth. So parachutes aren't really effective. So they do use boosters, and, you know, you've seen, I'm sure, things before where they have like bubbles wrapped around in this thing, and it sort of bounces around and comes to. So, you know, that works because it kind of floats almost, you know, into the planet. So it is very different. You know, I read somewhere once that a mission to Mars would probably, I think they said, just to get 400 kilometers away from Earth, probably uses up 80% of the fuel.
Yeah.
So just to get 400 kilometers off the surface of the planet Earth.
Wow.
You know, so less is needed because of the gravity. And, you know, then the rest is basically gravity will basically pull you back as well once you get the track and you get moving back here.
Absolutely fascinating. Fahad, stay with us. Please don't go anywhere.
Yes.
I promise. We're going to head over to Faraz Javid. He's over at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Let's find out what's going on over there. Faraz, can you hear me?
Ray and Yusuf, the excitement is building up over here, and I gotta say it's electric, and why not? Because interplanetary mission, which is all set to take off from the Tanegashima Space Center just about an hour from now. I would say 1 AM UAE time to be exact. Now, just a couple of things that I would like to remind the viewers is once the rocket takes off is the same place where UAE's first Emirati-built CalifaSat was launched back in 2018. So it's definitely the second home for some of the engineers out there who are stationed over there for the probe. And of course, when the launch happens, it'll take the launch vehicle approximately 11 minutes and 24 seconds to reach outer atmosphere. Now, this is a very crucial stage for the probe, and I'll tell you why. For two reasons. As soon as the launch vehicle, its gonna deploy its solar panels, which will power the batteries that will help the probe make the 500 million kilometers journey. Second is establishing the connection over here with the ground team. That is super crucial because this is exactly what is going to allow the ground team over here in Dubai to control the probe. Now, the first connection will be established with a ground station in Madrid. Then they will pass that connection over here at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center in Dubai. This is where the mission actually begins. Now, for 24 hours, 7 days a week, for the next 30 days, the team over here, and obviously checking the trajectory, fixing the telemetry that's coming in. Based on that, they will be making all the trajectory corrections and everything. And then after the 30 days is passed, the team over here will be connecting with the probe for about twice a week, and each connection lasts about 6 hours. Now, throughout these connections, it's super important because the team over here will be making sure that the probe is headed towards its right path towards the Martian planet. And of course, let's not forget, cruising at a speed of about 121,000 kilometers per hour. Now, another important factor to be considered in this is the telemetry data. Now, there's going to be a lag based on where the probe is. The lag could be anywhere between 15 minutes to 45 minutes. And based on that, which basically means that by the time the probe actually sends over here, it could take that long and vice versa. So they have built the probe with a fail-safe device. So if it does not receive the right instructions on time, it will hover around at a fail-safe position. And of course, I've got lots more facts to share with you guys throughout the evening, or the early morning rather, throughout this live broadcast. But for now, I'm gonna send it back to you guys, Ray and Yusuf at the studio.
Thank you so much, Faraz. One thing I just wanted to bring up before we go any further is we're talking about a lot of historical firsts this evening. The first Arab interplanetary mission, our first mission to Mars, of course, but we're going to hear the very first countdown to launch in Arabic, and that in itself is going to be an amazing moment.
No, that's for sure. I mean, you see the, Misbar al-Amal, this was not just something for the UAE, His Highness, the leadership, they saw this as something bigger than just the UAE itself, and this was dedicated to the Arab world. And I think that's what made this, so much bigger and so much more exciting. Bringing the culture into it, bringing the Arabic side into the countdown. They've done so many different social media events and aspects, which have just been phenomenal in that aspect. Just foreigners now, who have done these videos and counting down. And it just sends that message, it's not just to the youth of the UAE, it's to the Emiratis, it's to its residents, it's to the GCC, to the region, and to the whole Arab world.
It sends a message.
It's a huge message. I mean, and just, hope. Why did they call it hope? This was really a part of the whole thing. It's, part of the strategy we have at the UAE Space Agency, and part of the strategy that's actually been put in place for the space sector is really to have a project, because that's what brings humanity together. I've heard lots of different astronauts who have come back, and they say that as they start to go further and further, they start to point at, oh, that's my country and that's my country, and then it's, oh, that's my continent, that's my continent, and then it goes silent because people realize then, hey, we have one Earth.
Yeah.
There are no borders, there are no lines. And that's what, honestly, I found is really fantastic when coming into this space. I mean, the previous industry that I was in was very secretive in the sense, and, it was all very much, aligned to what country capabilities and all. And coming to the space side, it's been phenomenal because we pull together academia, we pull together students, professors, industry, scientists from all around the world, and that's just what's made all of this so phenomenal for me just in the last 5 months of being part of all of this, you know.
Absolutely. There's a lot of messages that this mission sends its completion instead of ticks, amongst other things that we'd like to get back to. But right now, we have a very interesting guest with us, ladies and gentlemen, and that guest, of course, is Emirati astronaut Sultan Al Niyadi, and the right man for the right occasion, joining us right now in a video call. A very good day and a good evening to you, Sultan, wherever you are right now, and thank you for joining us. And let's break it with the first question. Last year in Kazakhstan, it was a huge moment when Hazal Mansouri, your colleague, your brother, became the UAE's first astronaut and went to the International Space Station. Now, and we kind of know that at those last 10 seconds at launch, you were concerned for him. How are you feeling now towards a mission that is unmanned, but it carries the hopes and dreams of 7 Emirates and the entire Arab nation?
Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you for having me. So I think in terms of personal feelings, I think it's different. Last time it was a manned mission, so it was a human being on top of the rocket. Now we're talking about a satellite. In terms of the excitement, I think it's kind of similar. It's something new for the whole nation, for the whole region, and we are excited for it. And it will be quite an interesting journey because it will last for 7 months. So I think it's going to be a really exciting 7 months ahead.
Yeah, it's actually going to be a journey for us as well as the probe that gets sent back home to Earth. How important do you see this mission being for the UAE space program, but also for the Arab world as a whole?
Well, it's called Hope Probe. The name was an indication at the time when the Arab world was facing hardships and difficulties. So it's a strong message. Obviously, it's a big milestone for the UAE, and it's a matter of capabilities, developing the technology, and enabling engineers, scientists, and building a platform for this nation and the Arab region.
So part of reaching this historic moment has been the UAE's young people. How can that add up to the UAE's youth, and how can they enrich this program and this mission in the future?
As you may know, that the average age of the engineers in the MBRC are 27 or is 27, and to have these projects inspiring them and build some sort of enthusiasm to look beyond normal. So I think in the future we'll have more exciting projects. Yes, we have the capability to build satellites, and through a good partnership with centers and astronauts, and hopefully this will be sustainable. And now we're sending probes. So in the future, we will definitely look into something more exciting, like sending landers to Mars again, or maybe go back to the moon with the help of the international community, and especially in the space sector. So I think it's very exciting ahead of us.
Well, we seem to have a little bit of interference on the line, but we want to keep talking to you, Sultan, because it's so fascinating. You're one of the only people who's actually been through the UAE space program, through training for it. What is it about space exploration that excites you so much?
Well, I don't want to sound cliche by saying it's like a dream since childhood. It is. But in terms of the current science that we should be involved in, it's very exciting to help humanity explore space. It's very exciting to be among the elite club of space. They're less than 600. So to be doing this some sort of exciting job of floating more the international exploring space through missions to Mars, I think that is a very exciting thing to do.
Sultan Niadi, Emirati astronaut, thank you very much for joining us at this moment, at this historical day.
Yeah, we would love to have chatted to you for a little bit longer. We're just fighting against a bad line there, so sorry about that. Yeah. Now, anyone who's been following the Emirates Mars mission will know that the launch had to be delayed twice due to unsuitable weather conditions in Japan. Now, fortunately, we had more than one opportunity to get the Hope probe into space. Here's more information about that launch window. Must leave the Earth during the launch window, which this year started on July 15th and finishes on August 3rd. After its launch, the Hope probe will travel in an elliptical orbit around the Sun at a constant measured speed. Its path will ultimately meet the orbit of Mars on a journey that lasts from 7 to 9 months. In the event that the weather is bad or there's a breakdown during the launch window period, the launch must be postponed until the next window, which occurs in 2022.
Well, welcome back, and that was a lot of information, and yet there is more. There is more to this than meets the eye. We're back with Fahad Al-Mhari. Fahad, we've heard a lot of information, and what catches the eye, I have to say, is the fact that this project was estimated and it required 10 years to be finished, but it finished at 6, yet it is really insured. And we're not talking any regular insurance policy here. We're talking about a fault-safe insurance policy in case a communication happened. We know that there is a communication delay between 13 and 26 minutes when it comes to communication. So, and quantity were both maintained in this project in nearly 6 years. How do you...
Well, you know, again, I've only been part of this project since about February 14th when I joined the agency. And, you know, I'd heard a lot about the project, you know, every time I pass the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, you know, you see it there. My kids had always asked about it. And, you know, once I joined the UAE Space Agency and, you know, realized like, okay, well, we're going to be part of this project now. So it's, you know, it's exciting. I mean, the teams have been coming back and forth from the U.S. You know, the achievement of actually getting that done within the 6 years is phenomenal. I mean, it's just look at where we are as the UAE, you know, as the space sector. We only started this. You know, Thuraya, I guess, I mean, really started, I would say, with, you know, our great father, Sheikh, it was Sheikh Rashid and Sheikh, sorry, Sheikh Zayed Nahyan. Yes. He was the one who really had that dream, and, you know, he called in, and the team from the Apollo mission 17 actually came to the UAE. I believe it was in 1976. Yes. So even at that time, you know, there was always the questions, why Mars, go to space, what's the big deal about that? And, you know, from that time, the seed was planted. And, you know, we started off with a company called Thuraya. That was the first, you know, satellite communications company that came up. And then you had Yasat that came through after that. Then you had the establishment of the Emirates Advanced Institute for Science Technologies came up. And that was then taken in when Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center was set up in 2006, I believe.
Yes.
You know, the UAE Space Agency it started in 2014, so 3 days ago we celebrated our 6th anniversary.
Wow.
And you know, to think that, okay, 6 years after that, where there wasn't really this international collaboration like we have today, you know. It was companies doing their own thing in isolation. Space policy, there was no space strategy, there was no space law. and that Hazza al-Mansouri and that they went to the International Space Station last year.
Yeah.
All of this has been put together as part of the space sector, the 2030 National Space Strategy. So all of the things that you're seeing today is part of that strategy. And the space law that has come up as well. So all of the document, and it's a document that the team have spent years on. Starting off with the policy, the strategy, and now we have the UAE space law that was actually just launched in December last year. To have that already, and the space law is so forward-thinking, the strategy is so forward-thinking. We have other countries now coming back to us, and I would even go as that the US is even now looking at updating their space laws and policies, and they're coming back to us, asking us, what is it that you guys did? What have you added, and how can we work together? So it's not us anymore, taking what's out there, but we have adopted it, and we've thought about the future developments, and this is where we stand now. We're recognized internationally. And
one of the things that I'm most fascinated by and impressed by in many ways is the fact that all of this data, all of this research from the probe when it's orbiting Mars will be sent back, and it's going to be, obviously it needs to be validated first, but then it's going to be shared online. It's going to be available to the entire world, whoever's interested, from scientists to the general public. Complete sort of open policy, open door policy to the world. It's saying get involved in our research, and that's very sort of original and quite forward thinking, I think.
And I think that's the thing, I think, I'm sure you've heard before from Her Excellency Sarah Al-Amiri, there's plus institutes that have signed up to receive this data. The great thing is we also have students here in the UAE who are actually also waiting for this data.
Yeah.
We've got some fantastic groups that have been set up. One is the GSI, the Global Space Innovation Group, and that's been phenomenal for us because we have students and professors who are actually working on projects today, projects that the UAE Space Agency are funding or the universities themselves are funding. We have about 33 projects ongoing right now to do with space, from CubeSats, certain services, R&D, specializing in all sorts of different things. And it's been phenomenal, honestly. It used to be a road show, sort of the team would get together once every quarter, but it's been happening on the situation of the COVID and, webinars and all the virtual meetings. It's been fantastic. We've been holding meetings now with 100+ people involved. And they've been presenting their projects, talking about really what's next, what the next R&D things are. And it's really great because all that information is not kept to, that project or that person. It's shared with the whole community. And anyone can come in, anyone's welcome to join that. So it's been great. Another fantastic group that we have is the Global Space Accelerator Program that's been put together. And that has also been something great. The last webinar we did, we had over 500 people joining us, over 100 questions asked and answered. I make sure I'm a part of these because I get so inspired by the questions and by the community and by everybody being involved in this, and that really just drives everybody forward, with everything that we have.
We're going to get back to that, and we'll have more for you, Fahad. It's going to be a long, beautiful night, of course. And we're going to go with Professor Bruce Jakosky. He has been involved in more than half lunar and solar missions over the decades, starting with the Viking Mars landers of the 1970s, and is the principal investigator for the Maven orbiter, which is currently gathering data from the Red Planet. He joins us live from Colorado. Being with us.
Hi, my pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Now, Professor, the UAE and the University of Colorado worked together to make the Emirates Mars mission happen. How are you feeling with the launch less than...
My heart is in my stomach. This is the single biggest opportunity to have a problem.
Talk us specifically, if you don't mind, Professor, through the actual scientific implements that you helped to design, helped to construct. I'm thinking specifically of the EMUS, because once the Hope probe is orbiting Mars, they're going to be doing all the work. Tell us about them.
The goal of the mission is to understand the atmosphere and how the lower atmosphere connects to the upper atmosphere. So with the XV instrument, we'll be at dust and clouds in the lower atmosphere. The mirrors will be looking at temperature and water and clouds in the lower atmosphere. And EMUs will be looking at the upper atmosphere. By looking at them both at the same time, we can see how they couple together.
Professor, there are a number of active probes currently orbiting Mars. What could the Hope probe's mission tell us that we don't already know?
It was designed in order to answer questions that have been raised by previous missions. So it's the next set of measurements, the next set of observations. Our goal is to understand how the atmosphere works today and how the atmosphere has evolved through time. By looking at what's going on today, we can see what has happened in the past and infer how much gas has been lost to space and how the climate varies and has varied.
In terms of that, that research, how could it actually help us here on Earth? What are the benefits of this research that we can put into practice here? What can we learn from it?
That's a very difficult question. If we wanted to learn more about the Earth's atmosphere, we study the Earth's atmosphere. Looking at Mars, we understand how atmospheres in general work, and that helps us understand the potential for life on Mars and the potential for planets around other solar systems.
Professor, it is said that the red planet and our blue planet are quite very similar. Now, if they would really have exclamation marks on top of them. But can you tell us in what points are they similar or alike?
Well, they're similar in that we see a lot of things going on in Mars that have happened or are happening on the Earth. We see clouds in the atmosphere, dust storms in the atmosphere, weather. And on the ground, we see volcanoes, polar caps, river channels, things that look very familiar to us. So there's clearly been a lot of commonality between the two planets, yet they're very different. The Mars atmosphere is about 0.5% as thick as the Earth's atmosphere. It's far distant, so it's colder, and Mars doesn't have oceans to buffer the temperature and atmosphere. So while they're very similar, they're also very different.
The current missions on Mars, to Mars, such as Curiosity rover, are geological, but this is actually an ecological mission. What are the differences between them, and would you say that one is actually more important than the other?
Well, of course, studying the atmosphere is the most important part. Really, though, we need to study all the different components of the Mars environmental system in order to understand it. The atmosphere connects to the upper atmosphere, it connects to the polar caps and the surface. By studying each piece of the surface with a rover and using remote sensing to study the global behavior of the surface atmosphere, we can see how they couple together.
Professor, so by the next year or by the next couple of years, humanity will be informed more than ever about the geology, geography, and ecology of the red planet. How long do you think it could take before there is a colony on Mars? Do you think humans can be the first Martians?
We can do that. The current plan would have, depending on who you listen to, would have humans on Mars either in this decade or the next decade. And once we have humans there, it's not a big step to have permanent participation, permanent habitation. So I think it may not happen in my lifetime, but certainly in the lifetime of the people watching this.
Yusuf was explaining in your introduction how the focus of the missions, or rather how you've been involved in missions since the 1970s. Have you seen a change in the focus of the missions and the sort of the targeting of the information that they're trying to discover?
When we first started sending spacecraft to Mars, really in the 1960s and 70s, it was the first look at the red planet. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what to see. And everything we saw was brand new. As we learned a little bit more, we were able to ask very specific questions about how the surface has evolved, how the atmosphere has evolved, and between them. And each mission we send now is designed to address a different set of questions. One of the things that I've noticed over the decades is we're making new measurements, we're making them in a new way, and it's as if we're seeing the planet for the first time. Every mission has made fundamental discoveries that tell us something to us. I have every expectation that the HOPE mission will not only answer our questions, but also throw some things at us that are brand new and totally unexpected.
Here's another category of questions we wonder if the probe is going to answer, and perhaps this is the most favorite category of questions. Extraterrestrial life, Professor. I think it is one of your passions. Now, could this search, such a search, could it be carried out by the HOPE probe to help?
HOPE is not designed to search for life. It's designed to understand the history of the climate. But the climate, the weather, the environment is fundamental to whether life can exist on the planet. So all of these missions, by studying how the different of the environmental system play together, are really getting at the question of habitability by microbes and whether there could be life there and whether there is life there. I think that the questions about life are most likely to be answered when we can go to collect samples, bring them back to Earth, and study in laboratories here. And that is part of NASA's and ESA's plans right now.
Professor Bruce Jakosky, thank you so much for joining us from the United States. I was going to ask you if you're still excited about the search for Mars after 50 years of research, but I can tell the answer is definitely yes. We appreciate your time.
I'm very excited, and keep your fingers crossed for a successful launch today.
Absolutely. That's the key message. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now launched at the start of this month by the UAE government, registration for the Arab Space Pioneers program has now closed after drawing an incredible 37,000 applications in just 2 weeks. Katie Jensen has more.
As the UAE prepares to make history tonight, so it will in the coming months, thanks to the launch of the Arab Space Pioneers program, a first-of-its-kind specialised space training program for the region. Launched by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, UAE Vice President, Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai, at the start of this month, in collaboration with the UAE Space Agency, 37,000 applications within just 2 weeks. Registration has now closed. The selected finalists will receive the chance to undergo specialised training in line with the Emirates Mars Mission that combines theory as well as hands-on practical experience. Those chosen will also receive a 3-year residency visa in the UAE and have an opportunity to build advanced satellites. Officials say that scholarships and other financial incentives will also be on offer. More than 19,000 applications for the program came from Egypt, followed by 6,000 in Iraq and several thousand in places like Algeria and Morocco, as well as the UAE. The next stage of the will see a carefully selected committee of scientists, researchers and thinkers evaluate the applicants based on achievements in science and research. On September 29th last year, the UAE sent its first Emirati astronaut to the international space. Tonight, it will launch the first Arab probe to Mars. And in the coming years, this project is also set to transform the Arab space industry as we know it, helping to educate the next generation of Arab astronauts, researchers, engineers and experts in a variety of space projects for years to come, and showing that once again, the UAE can be possible. Katie Jensen, Dubai One.
38% were gravity weaker than our planet, and it still pulled a rocket and a... Dear viewers, you're watching our coverage from Dubai. Everyone, my name is Yusuf and this is Ray, and we have, of course, Fahad Al-Mheri. Right now, we're going to move to a network of correspondents as we continue the countdown to launch. Let's check in with Faraz Javed at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Faraz.
Yusuf, the atmosphere over here is absolutely electric. As you can see right behind me, everyone is glued to the big screen where you can see the mission control at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. And of course, we've got millions of eyes, whether it's watching through our television network or through a live broadcast, whether it's the US, UK, Singapore, you name it, people are watching this historical moment. And of course, one of the exciting things about this probe is the design. Now, more than 150 Emirati researchers and scientists have been part of this since its inception 6 years ago, with a 735 million dirhams budget. Now, just like everything the UAE does, which is unique, the design for this probe is no different. Now, I was speaking to the senior director of the engineering department here at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, Amr Al-Saig, and he was telling me that most of the elements of this probe were actually fabricated here in the UAE. About is the installation of a plate that has the signatures of leadership. And this, of course, will be acting as a beacon of hope for humanity in outer space.
Well, it's quite important to showcase the leadership in this program as we received the commandment from our leaders, His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and all their highnesses. So we wanted to include them as they are leading us and guiding us through this challenging but yet shows the spirit of the UAE in taking this and making the impossible possible. So this is their touch in this mission, symbolized in this plate that was placed on the probe itself, that will, inshallah, travel all these millions of kilometers to reach Mars. And then for the design itself, we have more than 200 new technical designs designed here in the UAE by the UAE scientists and the UAE engineers to be implemented on this Mars mission. After that, I mean, during the fabrication, we managed to get more than 66 parts of the mechanical design of this mission, all fabricated here by the UAE industry. And then for the actual mission there in space, we already started to look at the science of this, and we have more than 51 scientific paper published already on this mission and the future of the atmosphere on Mars. So all of this work has been done so far before the launch, and we expect more and more to come as we launch this mission and reach Mars there.
Now, another aspect of this design for this probe, which makes probe will actually be going through a harsh climate, an alien climate that for many people like us, we have no clue, right? But here's the thing, that when it makes its 500 million kilometer journey, this probe is going to go through a lot of radiation, a lot of elements that people may not be aware of. And so this is exactly where AI is breaking down and letting us know, once this probe enters the outer space, what kind of elements it'll face, and once it reaches the Martian planet, what kind of climate it will have to face. Here, have a listen.
Well, it's going in space. Space is a hostile area. It's filled with radiation. The temperature there is quite extreme compared to what we have here on Earth. And it's all being done through equipments that are well designed and manufactured to make sure the cruise of the probe is directed towards Mars correctly. So technology is helping us here to go through this harsh environment in terms of weather, in terms of radiation, and especially for radiation, you are dependent on these electronics on board. So any error in these computers will have a negative impact. But so far, with the design and what we have done so far, we're quite sure that it can withstand successfully this kind of environment. Going to Mars itself, it will require some bit correction, let's call it, where a slight maneuvers in the orbit direction will make us target the right or the correct Martian insertion orbit. So all of these technologies are supporting us. In space, it's you're flying depending only on sun sensors, so the quality of this or the quality of the output of these sensors will definitely guide us through the emptiness of the space up toward the time where we reach Mars.
Now, once again, it's just a reminder that this is the UAE's first interplanetary mission. It's an unmanned mission. It will take about reach planet Mars, and of course, once it does, it will orbit the sphere for about 2 years, with a possible extension of another 2 years, depending on how the mission is going. And as you can see right behind me, we are very close to the launch time, and of course, I'll be bringing you all the updates throughout this live coverage. But for now, it's back to you guys, Ray and Yusuf, in the studio.
Yeah, thank you so much for us. I think we're less than 10 minutes away now from launch. You are, of course, watching Dubai One's live coverage of the Emirates Mars mission. At 1:58 a.m., the Hope probe is scheduled to lift off from Japan's Tanegashima Space Center and begin a 7-month journey to the Red Planet. Keeping us company as we wait is Fahad Al-Mahiri, Executive Director Agency. Fahad, it's been such a pleasure having you here throughout the show. In the studio. Let's look at that target. The moment that arrives at Mars, it's not just marking a technological achievement, it's actually celebrating a hugely significant event, the 50th anniversary of the UAE's formation as well.
Yes, yes. That was the whole plan, really, back in the day, and that was the target. That's why the is, oh, how's that going to happen, but the team, the MM team made it happen. Going back to the aspect of the launch, it's happening in a few minutes now, so there's a lot going to be taking place. There's a very clear schedule, second to second, that's going to be reviewed, as the launch takes place. And really, the nail-biting part will be, first the launch and that success, and then actually starting the communications channel with the probe. You had mentioned as well, because the communication takes so long, this has to be, it's AI-based, it's self-learning. It needs to know what's going on, and it's autonomous. It has to figure itself out. There are a lot of if situations, if this doesn't happen, then just go do this and go do that. It's not just going to hover. It's going to go. It's going to do its mission. From the way here, from here to Mars, it's going to be traveling at 121,000 kilometers per hour. Yeah. That's unfathomable in any land or anything here on Earth. And, to think that it's going to be traveling 493 million kilometers. If anyone reads up and thinks, okay, well, the closest we are to Mars, we get about 56 million kilometers. And then people think, well, if the closest we are is now at this window and it's 60 million kilometers away, why are we going 493 million kilometers to get to Mars? I like to just use a little sort of analogy of, let's say, if I was holding an egg right now and I wanted to throw it to you, I could throw it really hard at you and it would get to you very quickly in the shortest amount of time, but, assume your eggs are gravity, you need to catch that egg, and there's a lot of energy you need to take in, which, gravity isn't there. So the best way to do it is if I were to lob that egg to you. Right? That would give me the least amount of energy I need, because remember, fuel is such a big aspect to it. Yeah. And we really need to take care of that calculation. So we need to do it we can. So once I lob that, that egg will actually take a projectile path. It's not going to be a straight line.
Not a straight line. Yeah.
So if we assume we're 3 meters away, that egg is actually going to travel 7 meters to get to you. And we need to calculate it like a football player needs to calculate his shot. So if his teammate is running down the line, I'm not going to kick it at him. I need to kick it to where my mental judgment of his speed. So exactly the same thing has to happen when we launch this. And everything is precisely measured out. So it becomes phenomenal, the engineering feat that has to go into making this happen.
It's such a simple yet clear analogy, and totally makes... We wanted now to take a look at another VT, because great things have small beginnings, and of course the history of the Hope probe is probably the perfect example of that, Yusuf. Amal Al-Jabri found out a little bit more about the history of the Hope probe for us.
Mars, the red planet that has captured human imagination for centuries. The UAE has had its eye on Mars for years. The country's space industry has been an active one, in fact, since 2009, and has already undertaken enormous feats and has ambitious visions for the future. But it was back in 2014 that the country first announced it's to send a probe to Mars. And today, we're witnessing the launch of the Hope Mars Mission, also known as the planned journey to the Red Planet, will be carrying Al-Amal, the Hope probe, which will be the first Mars mission by any Arab or Muslim majority country. Mars orbiter was built by Emirati engineers and developed by the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center alongside the UAE Space Agency and in partnership with the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics at the University of Colorado. Officials say the Hope probe will be the first to provide a complete picture of the Martian atmosphere and its layers when it reaches the Red Planet's orbit next year. It will help answer key questions about the loss of hydrogen and oxygen gases, which are drawn into space over the span of 1 Martian year. The spacecraft will collect 2 years' worth of scientific data with an optional 2-year extension that would take the mission into 2025. The UAE's keen interest in space and the push behind the country's first interplanetary scientific mission started at least 5 decades ago. Our journey to space began with the UAE founding father, the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. In the 70s, he held at least 3 meetings on space, including a memorable gathering in Abu Dhabi. This video recording was taken on February 1976, when the UAE was just 5 years old. Sheikh Zayed is seen meeting with 3 American Apollo 17 astronauts, Gene Cernan, Ronald Evans, and Harrison Schmitt. The meeting gives us an early glimpse of the country's future space ambitions. More than 3 decades would pass before the UAE established its own space agency, having laid the foundation stone for the country's first Emirati astronaut, Hazza Al-Mansouri, being sent to the International Space Station. On January 5, 2020, at the Presidential Palace in Abu Dhabi, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, UAE Vice President, Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai, and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces, signed a final piece of the Hope probe destined for Mars. They also wrote an inspirational message for the rest of the Arab world on a piece of the outer casing of the orbiter. The 2 leaders wrote, "The power of hope shortens the distance between the earth and sky." Sheikh Mohammed said the UAE's ambitious space program continues to make progress in realizing Zayed's ambition of making the country a leader in the space sector. July was finally chosen as the launch date for the Hope probe, as Earth and Mars will be at their closest point, and this only happens once every 2 years. Emirates Mars Mission officials say with the onset of COVID-19 being a global pandemic, engineers raced against time to ship the Hope probe earlier than scheduled, making its way from the Middle East and onto the launch pad in Japan, ready for liftoff. The orbiter is expected to reach Mars in February 2021 and begin studying the Martian atmosphere later the same year. Today, the whole world has turned its attention to the Tanegashima Space Center in Japan as Hope lifts off on the Arab world's first interplanetary mission. Hope's arrival in the Martian atmosphere will coincide with the 50th anniversary of the United Arab Emirates formation, the Golden Jubilee of the Union. Reporting for the Hope Mars mission, Amal Al-Jabri.
It is just amazing. This was all a vision. It was a dream, it was a vision, and now a reality that is minutes away.
Less than 2 minutes.
Less than 2 minutes. As well. It is no different than you waiting for your grades in high school. You know that you have studied days and night, but when there are moments until you hear your percentage or your GPA, you are nervous. Are you feeling it?
Can you, I mean, for me, I feel for the team, you know. I wish I would have been part of this mental program, you know, from day one, but, you know, it wasn't my time then, but I can imagine for the team, this must be phenomenal, you know, just not just their grades, right? It's really comes down to the Arab world today, you know, everybody's got their, have this a successful launch.
Absolutely. And you say counting down, getting ready to count down in Arabic. I would imagine there'll be an incredible focus right about now with the whole team. They've been building up to this, they've been training for this, waiting for this moment, and we're just 1 minute away from the launch. What would you like to say to people watching at home as we prepare for this moment?
Well, really, you know, okay, fingers crossed, but, you know, I always, you know, you have to be optimistic, you know. To work in this field, you have to be optimistic. Anything could happen.
We're going to have to cut you there. Countdown beginning at any moment.
We have a liftoff of its vehicle number 42 from JAXA Tanegashima Space Center at 6:58:40 a.m. on July 20, 2020.
打ち上げ以降、ロケットの完成は吉本発射管制塔から江崎総合司令塔に引き継がれています。
Following liftoff, the operation control of the launch vehicle has been switched from the workhouse to the launch control center. The V2 is now flying above Pacific Ocean.
ロケットは正常に飛行中であり、種子島の地上局は正常にロケットの追尾を行っています。
The A2 flight is on course, and the Tanegashima station is tracking the launch vehicle very well.
80、81、82、83、80、86、87、88、89、90。
SLBA 燃焼終了。
The SLBs have burned out.
SRBA 分離。
SRBA separation.
14、15、16、17、18、19、120。
第1段エンジンの燃焼は正常。制御系飛行経路も正常です。ロケットは順調に飛行を続けており、現在の高度は約 95km、秒速約 1.5km です。
The combustion in the first stage engine, altitude control, and trajectory are all nominal. The A2 flight is on course. Current altitude is about 55 km, yours is approximately 1.5 km per second.
Where you have that vibration.
What a very special moment. It was doubly interesting for you watch the rocket go up, Farhad. I mean, what was that like for you?
God, I mean, you saw some feed of people clapping and cheering. You know, I have to behave myself here at the studio, right? Otherwise, I'd probably be jumping up and down too as well. Absolutely. With the team. You know, I'm so happy for them, and congratulations. You know, up to this point, what a phenomenal journey. You know, we're not there yet. There's still a way to go. You know, the second stage burns and everything still has to happen, something we can't see, unfortunately, unless there were actual cameras or feed coming in from the spacecraft itself. But you know, we don't have that feature here, and so we'll just have to wait till the communications team come back to us.
But that was some good footage quality we've just seen there. I mean, we're really happy we actually caught it at the right moment, right when we stopped it right there. Seeing the sound barrier being penetrated as the rocket goes up, I think we've seen signs of separation between the tip of the rocket and the thrusters as well.
Yeah, that's the solid rocket boosters. So the rocket is made up of, I would say, 4 main segments. And when you have the solid rocket boosters, it's a solid propellant, and those are attached to the main first stage. Mm-hmm. The first stage is liquid nitrogen and liquid oxygen combustion. The SRBs are like them. You cannot turn those things off. They will burn for the minute or the 100 seconds they're designed for, and then they drop off. Why things drop off is to lose the weight. You know, they need to remember what I said. It's all about weight and gravity. So as soon as there's something that you don't need, let go of it and keep moving. You know, as this progresses now, we're going to see more of that happen. The first stage is going to drop off and continue. It'll have 2 consecutive burns, you know, and that'll be happening until separation of the
there it is. That's what we're talking about. That's the
yeah, you saw that, right? Yeah, yep. That was that. So that was the sound barrier, and then soon after it starts going into max, and that's where it's really the rocket is seeing the most vibrations, and it's the most critical time.
But you've mentioned liquid the fuel, liquid nitrogen,
and liquid oxygen.
What about hydrogen?
Hydrogen only happens in space. So that's actually on the RCS thrusters, and that's what will control pitch, rotation, and direction, both on the second stage probe itself.
I know you're enjoying that as well, particularly for several reasons, but because you know a little bit of Japanese and we're hearing the English commentary and
that is not true. It's the second rocket launch I've ever seen.
No, but you were enjoying it on multiple levels, I know.
Well, there are rare occasions where I can really relate to something that happens before my eyes. For the first time, I don't only have exclamation points over my head, I actually know a thing or two.
Absolutely.
Can you count down in Arabic?
No, I wish I could.
Well, there you go.
To say, I wish I could. Watching your eyes light up, I think particularly the moment when the boosters fell away, that was a very special moment because you know you can see it's like a jigsaw puzzle, kind of as the rocket actually sort of in a controlled way falls apart. Yeah. It's like a jigsaw puzzle being put together as it goes into space.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the thing. It's you know, getting to where we are and with this space technology, you know, it's phenomenal. I mean, you know, a lot of people ask, you know, would the UAE venture into supporting launch vehicle capabilities today, you know? And it's really expensive, you know, and you need to have a good program and consistent movement to be able to keep something like that feasible. You know, we probably have over a good, you know, 5 or 6 that are active and moving forward. And one of the things we're looking at here at the UAE is actually horizontal launch capabilities. So like a rocket, you know, we've been looking at, you know, how like Virgin Galactic and Virgin Orbit are doing it, and, you know, possibilities to do something similar to that. It's a lot more efficient. It's a lot cheaper. opportunities like that are possible here in the UAE.
Absolutely, and it's been an amazing partnership. Actually, obviously, traveling with the Hope probe over to Japan for one day we could actually have our own launch site here in the UAE, and maybe, who knows, launch other people's probes into space for them. Is this like a? I mean, you came to work for the UAE Space Agency about 5 months ago, I think you said. I mean, what was the thing that really excited you of working for the space agency? Is that sort of bigger picture?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'm coming from the defense industry. I've been in that for the last 4 years. It's very quiet. And coming into space, it's so open and so transparent. And that's what's been so fantastic about it, that you can talk to students, you can talk to the public, you can talk to the world. It's all for humankind. Everything that's happening, you think about it, space today, a lot of people take it for granted. It's like water in your tap. If you don't have satellites in space, you don't have GPS. And if you don't have GPS, you're in trouble in so many different ways. You can't even order your pizza nowadays without that,
You can't find your way here to the studio and be with us on the show.
Luckily you did. Luckily you did.
Something comes to mind too, and what is that? Ray, I've lost what was on.
No problem. It's a fascinating conversation that we're having with you at the moment, Fahad. And I think, in a way, we're all a little bit dumbstruck because we've just seen one of the most amazing spectacles that we've ever seen. And you were saying about the inclusiveness of space and how much more open it is, understandably, than the military sector. But it is that thing. It's that openness. It's like the greatest show on Earth in a way. Something like that. The rocket taking off, the possibilities of what it will encounter as it travels through space, and obviously the data that it's going to be sending back to Earth. There's something for everybody. It's like the show that sort of exists for everybody on that level.
I mean, Mr. Brian there regarding Maven, that's I would say the Hope probe is almost an upgrade to that. It's a continuum of that. It's one of the things with Maven was that it does some of the things that the Hope probe is looking at, but the biggest problem is it's in a polar orbit, so it's always visiting the same places again.
Yeah.
And that the issues came in. It was like, well, we won't get a full picture. It's like having a weather station on Earth, but I'm only looking at cities on the equator. Now, because of the elliptical orbit that the Hope probe is taking, we are getting a full glimpse, a global glimpse of Mars. And that's really where the big difference comes in.
Absolutely.
And also looking at not just the lower, but the upper atmosphere as well. That's where, things are different from the Maven project and this one.
Well, a lot of action going on in Japan, but obviously so many members of the team as well at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. In a moment, we're going to go and chat to Faraz about what's been happening down there, how they reacted to the launch.
I'm excited to see that.
Stay tuned for that in a moment's time.
We're going to get to that, of course, because we'd like to know about more reactions bigger than this studio right here. But here's a question. I remember what I lost just now. A lot of people could go on asking, what is next? What's after the Hope probe? And what is after the Hope probe has already been launched, and it has a name, the Arab Space Pioneers, if I'm not wrong. It recorded a number of applicants.
37,000. We saw the VT about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just taking you for confirmation.
Absolutely. I like that.
Tell me, how is this going to add up, of course, to other missions as well as we enrich it with more applicants?
Well, we have several different projects ongoing right now, and the next big to be announced. There's a lot of things that are happening right now, a lot of exciting things happening on the astronaut flight side, with the 4,000 applicants, the astronauts, and now with the Arab Space Pioneer Program. This is, again, a phenomenal initiative where His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid saw how a program like this has done so much for the UAE, so much for the students, so much for the inspiration. And this is, again, His Highness reaching out to the Arab world and giving back. Now he is giving the Arab world an opportunity to step in the shoes of UAE nationals and do something similar and gain similar experience. And why is that? Because, we're a small country in the middle of the Middle East. this is all about partnerships. It's all about collaboration. You know, at the UAE Space Agency, we had set up the Arab Space Cooperation Group, and that is a group of 14 countries today and counting. You know, we're looking at a total of possibly 22 to start being part of future missions. This just took it to another level. Absolutely. So brought in 37,000 applicants.
Yes.
That, you know, these guys are going to be the, you know, creme de la creme. These are the prodigies, the Arab prodigies of space. And, you know, we've set up a few different tracks. I won't be able to disclose too much more, but there are 3 different tracks that will be opening up about this program. And in the coming weeks, we'll be filtering down those 37,000 applicants. And we'll definitely have more to announce soon on that program.
Fascinating. And we might actually pick your brains a little bit more on that during the show. We might see if we get some more information out of you. As I said, it's time to head over to the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center and find out from Faraz Javid, our reporter on the ground, what was the reaction over there, Faraz?
Meyer, you'll have to cue me.
Well, it doesn't sound like Faraz can actually hear us at the moment, but the highly anticipated Faraz Javid, we'll definitely get an update from him. One of the things I would like to ask you at this time, though, Fahad, when you think about all the work, all the hard work that people have put in, the dedication, the hours, you know, maybe missing family, missing friends, missing special occasion, particularly at this time when, you know, we've all been battling across the world against COVID-19 and the restrictions that that's caused. You must feel proud of the whole team, the UAE Space Agency, the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, every single person involved. There just must be a huge amount of pride.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you know, everybody has put things off. I mean, COVID came in at a time that was really difficult for the team. You know, this was not something planned. Everything else, the weather, you know, any delays, that would have been planned. But the pandemic was not something we had in our books. It's not something we had in the program. It's nothing that we could engineer ourselves around.
Fahad, apparently we have now got from Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Faraz, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Faraz? Well, looks like we continue to have some connection problems.
Now, once again, history was made just moments ago, right here. Again, once UAE launched its first Mars mission from Japan's Tanegashima Space Center. I just want to give you guys an idea. Over here, just before the launch, there was pin drop silence. And at 1:50 time, when the rocket took off, there was cheers, there was joy. I actually even saw people crying. And why not? It's understandable. You know, we all witness history and we all are proud of it. It's the first interplanetary mission for the UAE, for the Arab world. And we all definitely have a reason to be proud of it. Now, another thing that I would like to highlight when it comes to outer space mission, when from, you know, around the world we hear, or the words that we hear rather, are space race. But that's not the case when it comes to the UAE. It is all about collaborating with other space agencies, working with them to find the common areas or grounds that have yet to be discovered, or even topics that scientists are having hard time to tapping into. And so when I was talking to the program manager for Mars 2117 right here at the Mohammed, this is exactly what he highlighted, is how the Emirates Mars mission was designed with collaboration with other space agencies. Have a listen.
So with the Emirates Mars mission, first of all, we're sending a message of hope to our region, to the youth in our region, that a small nation with certain capabilities are able to build a mission to Mars and sending it to Mars and contribute efforts in exploring the red planet. This also will send a message to the young generation, so that there's nothing possible. So we as a nation, when we grew up, our generation, we didn't have a space agency or a space program and space missions. Today, our kids, when they grow up, will see that today in the UAE, we have a space program, very active space program. We're building satellites, we're sending astronauts to the International Space Station, we're sending missions to Mars. So there is no limit for their imagination and also for their, innovative ideas to come up. So this is an opportunity which we are giving it to the next generation, so that they think outside the box and focus on these focusing on the areas that are very relevant and will help us on building our space program and building the nation in the UAE and in the region. A unique mission because we are for the first time studying the Martian atmosphere and global diurnal day-to-night coverage. This is going to be the first mission that will provide such information, and this is the international community to understand the Martian atmosphere, and will help also future missions. One day when we send humans to Mars, to understand the Martian atmosphere, because today the Martian atmosphere being studied, during certain times of the day and night, and leaving more than 80% of the Martian atmosphere unexplored. With the Emirates Mars Mission, we'll have that global understanding of the Martian atmosphere that will help us in future missions.
The UAE's Hope probe is expected to reach Mars in the first quarter of 2021, and of course it will coincide with the UAE's Golden Jubilee, which obviously marks the UAE's union dating back to 1971. And of course, the Emirates Mars mission is not only for the UAE, it's not only for the Arab world, but it's for the human. Will help us understand the Martian atmosphere. As a matter of fact, the data that will be collected from this mission will be shared with 200 rivers around the world. And once again, the historical moment was marked today at 1:58 AM UAE time, when the UAE's first interplanetary mission was launched from Tanegashima Space Center in Japan. And I'll have more details about, obviously, and the separation later on through this live broadcast. For now, it's back to the studio.
Thanks a lot, Faraz. And indeed, time had stopped at 1:58 a.m. And it will only resume, not 7 months later, but once we get info about that first signal.
Absolutely.
For now, our next guest is the head of space exploration at the UK Space Agency, and as such, is responsible for developing the strategy for the UK's involvement in the International Space Exploration Program, which includes making the case for funding.
Very important.
Sue Horn joins us. Hello, Ms. Sue, and welcome aboard, of course, on this video conference. It is your job to sort out the politics and finance that allows scientists and engineers to do their job. How important is it that governments fund space exploration missions?
I think this is why you want to do space exploration, for the science that you can achieve through these missions, the technology that you develop, because that's not only used for space, but there are spin-offs on applications back here on Earth. There's also the inspirational element, the inspiring young people to take careers in science and engineering. What we try to do is invest in areas that will achieve this, and then we annul a return, and this makes the case for future funding. And I must congratulate you on a successful launch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate those very kind words. Let's talk. I mean, it seems a shame to talk about money, but it is quite important. Quite a lot of the time, it does fund these sorts of projects. But what sectors of a country's economy actually benefit from missions like the Hope probe mission and actually having active and successful space program?
Well, it's quite interesting because it spreads quite widely, especially innovative exploration missions. So we've been working on Mars rovers and the software autonomous software, and there's a lot of spin-off on that for the motor industry, nuclear power industry, as well as the space sector. So it's quite wide-ranging, and sometimes you are quite surprised about what actually spins out. So we've had some technology that has then been used to improve manufacturing of aluminium cans, drinks cans, and reduced the amount of aluminium using that making the drinks can by 10%.
One last question, Ms. Sue, and that is, of course, space programs. Space is such an amazing profession and a major at the same problem, but at the same time. But why is it important that universities get involved in space programs in terms of building scientific instruments?
It's because it's really stretching. It makes you able to work in teams, very large teams, and these are important things for industry, to be that team player, to be able to work internationally, to be able to work through the challenges that space pose.
For joining us this evening. It's really interesting to get your take from the United Kingdom. Thanks for coming on the programme. Now, Fahad, I mean, what's your reaction to some of Sue's comments there? Important, isn't it, to collaborate with universities, but also to collaborate with businesses, SMEs, and really kind of actually snippets of having an active space program around the country.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the core mandates that we have as the UAE Space Agency, where we need to inspire, we need to get the young generation aware, we need to make sure to get them up to understand R&D, and what better subject than space to inspire, I mean, imagine the millions of children that today watch this launch, have been a part of this project, how inspiring that is. 9-year-olds today, 12-year-olds today looking at that, that will be embedded in their memory, and they will think, I want to do something in space, It's not anymore just being an astronaut, right? It is now about being part of space, about being part of the ecosystem, which is massive. For us here at in the UAE, we have already 3 universities that have programs, graduate programs to do with space. So, people can do their master's degree. We have University, and we have the University of Sharjah. And these are part of the team that are already part of the ESIG that I was talking about earlier, who are all collaborating. Now, when we look as well at the industry, I'm making contacts with the defense industry because, the manufacturing capability is massive over there. Strata, for instance, we had His Excellency Badr al-Ulama talk about the relationship between Strata and space. And, if you think about it, the aerospace capabilities that Strata has to building things and manufacturing in, composites is phenomenal. And we have a facility that's at Tawazun Industry Park over in Abu Dhabi that actually do produce parts today for Airbus and Boeing. Now, you think about the collaboration of having that sort of industry that is already here, being able to produce. If you remember, there are 66 parts that were produced here in the UAE, and this is by the local industry. So those are part of the entities that were actually supportive in doing that. Now, when we look at a bigger picture of international collaboration, as the UAE Space Agency, that's our role. We are the point of contact to the world when it comes to anything to do with space on the government level. We have over 25 MOUs with different countries, space agencies from around the world. And it was really inspiring because we probably got like 10, 12 different messages from different space agencies, directors, administrators throughout the world, congratulating the UAE on this mission as well, and, and good luck really on the mission. And it shows the collaboration with all the different countries. And this is what we've done, our Director General, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Al-Ahbabi, has been so fundamental in that. He has been positioning himself in so many different congresses and conferences. We're part of 12 different massive ones. The IAC, which is the biggest, it's the International Astronomical Congress. That happens every year. It's been happening every year for the last 70 years. And this was supposed to take place in the UAE this year. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, that is now shifted to 2021 along with the Expo.
You know, it is such a wonderful occasion today. The journey has been long, the journey has been tough, and when Mr. Hone just did us on a successful launch, it is so nice to hear that word. I'm going to get back to you, of course, Fahad. Right now, I believe we have with us a video call with Francois Forget. He is a research scientist who has worked on projects designed to model the environment on other worlds, including Mars. Currently, he is the research director at the National Center, and he joins us now from France. Mr. Francois, can you hear us? And thank you for joining us.
Now shifted to 2021 along with the Expo. You know, it
Francois,
is
can you
a
hear us?
wonderful occasion today. The journey has been long. The journey has been
I think we have a situation. We don't know if Mr. Francois can hear us, so...
Sounds like he's doing another interview.
Yeah, it's... I do not have any doppelgangers.
No, but I think he might be doing another interview. Hopefully we'll catch him when he's finished his next
Absolutely, we'll do that. Why don't we get back to Fahad right now, as soon, of course, as Control tries to sort that out. So, Fahad... here's the thing, as we said, it has been quite a long journey and we really needed the good news. And I think we're going to go back to our guest, Mr. Francois Forget. Sorry about that. Mr. Francois, can you hear us?
You know,
Oh, well, we're definitely having trouble getting hold of Francois at the moment. We'll definitely be in touch with him in a moment, though, because we're persistent, if nothing else, here in the UAE.
This is what got us to the Red Planet,
Absolutely.
And persistence.
Yes, absolutely.
Keep trying.
One of the questions actually we're going to ask Francois in a moment is the appeal of the Red Planet and that draw, that attraction that we have to. As we were saying, we're chatting to Professor Bruce from Colorado earlier, and he's been working on missions to Mars since the 1970s.
Yeah.
And yet we are still fascinated. Things are still changing. We're getting more information. And the Mars Hope probe, when it gets there next year in the 50th anniversary of the UAE, it's actually going to send the most scientific information back that we've ever had before. Just a quick word from you on that.
The latest information that's there, you know, it's going to answer questions that have been there and also open up the opportunity for new questions.
Absolutely.
You know, the U.S. is going to be launching, you know, there are 3 different missions going out during this window.
Busy time.
A very busy time. You know, China is looking at launching many first evers, actually, on the 23rd of July. So this is going to be their first debut of the actual rocket, which is a Long March 5.
Yeah.
Would you allow me for one more time?
Persistence.
Third time does the charm. Deputy Director, Dynamic Meteorology Laboratory from Paris, Mr. Francois Forget. Can you hear us?
Anyone here?
Yes, we can hear you, Francois. How are you doing?
Can you hear us, Mr. Francois?
It's quite possible we're being given a message.
Is it my voice?
About this. I don't know. He's not talking to me either. But wish you well, and we hope to hopefully we'll chat to you a little bit later on in the programme.
If you would allow me, Ray, I do have a question for Fahad. Fahad, in 2019, when we went to Kazakhstan for the Zayed mission number 1, I couldn't help but notice something, and that is whenever you speak to anyone on the street, they have this literacy and fluency in space. You talk to anyone, rocket science, with all of its complications and its beauty, to them, it is as simple as reading poetry. Now, the question is, how do we turn this into an inheritance? How do we inject this into our education systems and make sure that we have a community, a youth, a generation just as fluent in those countries?
That is an excellent point. And again, this goes into one of our mandates. You know, it is about awareness. It is about the educational side. So we actually have, a program that we run not just for, but also for kids from, KG up to grades 12. We have had, in 2019, interactions with over 12,000 people when it came to awareness, when it came to events, when it came to competitions. We have about 48 students that we are actually sponsoring, both locally and internationally in universities for students who are studying aspects related to space. And we have had around 829 different, people joining us at space camps, both winter and the summer. And it's been great because that's exactly where that comes from. You keep running these sort of space camps, you keep having missions. We have another launch that's happening on September 20th. We have a Mizensat that's going to be launching on that, from that facility that you mentioned. So it's really about, again, persistence that we just talked about earlier, and continuation, and the transparency. And this is what we want to do, together with opportunities like this, is getting that message out. What is space all about? Creating that whole ideology of a culture, really, of space. Tomorrow, around with NASA caps and NASA jackets. No, we want them to wear the UAE Space Agency jacket. Kids and caps.
I wanted to mention that.
I wanted one of those.
Because for Raz, when he went down to the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, they were giving out press T-shirts, and I was going to ask him, I was a bit too embarrassed, but I wanted to ask him, can you get me one as well? Because I wanted to take home. Talking of Faraz, we are going to head over to the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, where Faraz Javid is about to conduct a very, well, probably not too technical, but a very interesting interview with somebody who's chatting to you down there. Faraz, what's going on?
Things are getting exciting over here at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. And of course, with me right now is Aisha Al-Sharafi, the spacecraft propulsion engineer. Congratulations for the successful launch that just happened moments ago at the Japanese Space Center. Walk me through some of the emotions that you went through.
It has definitely been a roller coaster of emotions, from being nervous, terrified, to being happy, excited, and grateful that we have reached this milestone. But above all, there is one emotion, and that's hope. We are hoping for a successful separation of the spacecraft. We are hoping for a successful acquisition of signal from the spacecraft, and we are hoping that things go as smooth as possible.
Now, speaking of the next step, I know the next step is super crucial, which is basically the separation. So walk me through, what are some of the steps that will take place from right up until now, till the first connection?
So after separation from the launch vehicle, the spacecraft will undergo a sequence of events. Been tested extensively on ground. They are fully autonomous. So 5 minutes after separation, the solar arrays will deploy. 15 to 30 minutes after separation, we will get our first acquisition of signal from the spacecraft. And then after that, we will be commissioning our reaction control thrusters to be able to detumble the spacecraft and to capture the rates. All of these operations are fully autonomous. However, when we get our first signal from the spacecraft, we will be able to monitor its health as it performs these operations.
As of right now, have you got an idea how long it'll take to get that first connection?
So it's around 15 minutes nominally after separation. Separation is an hour after launch. So we are now waiting for separation to happen.
Fantastic. Now, since I asked you this question, what are some of the challenges you guys faced while designing this probe?
So it has been a journey full of challenges, of course. The object is that nothing is impossible if you work towards it. Our team has had the share of challenges, from technical challenges to schedule challenges. We only had 6 years to design and develop the spacecraft, whereas similar projects take up to 10 years. We also had other challenges, like trying to transport the spacecraft to the launch site in mid of a global pandemic and lockdowns. We also had recently the weather challenges in Japan, so it has been a journey full of challenges, but we were always working towards. I think these challenges always motivated us to work harder and to see them as learning opportunities.
Well, definitely your hard work has paid off. Successful launch. Congratulations to you and your team. And of course, we'll be hearing from you about the successful connection that will be established soon. And of course, once again, we are now waiting for the connection to be established, which will first be established at the ground station in Madrid. Then it'll be passed out over here to the Mohammed bin Rashid. The mission will actually begin, where the probe, the UAE Mars probe, will make its 500 million kilometer journey to the Mars and become the 24/7 weather satellite for Mars, sending crucial data for us to understand how one day human beings can actually live on planet Earth. For now, it's back to you guys, Ray and Yusuf, in the studio.
Thanks a lot, Faraz, and what a day will it be to be alive, won't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very special occasion. Lots of great research, and of course, all publicly available as well.
Yes, you're watching Dubai One's live coverage of the launch of the UAE Hope probe, which began its journey at 1:58 this morning, when it successfully lifted off from the Tanegashima Space Center in Mars.
Yeah, right now it's beginning its journey towards the red planet. Here's a virtual view of the solar system that it's going to be travelling through. Let's take a trip to the Milky Way now. It's the galaxy that contains our solar system, which is just one of 500 currently discovered. It's located in the Orion star cluster, and only 15% of the stars in the galaxy host a planetary system. Thus, one of those stars is the Sun, the beating heart of the system to which the Earth belongs. And revolving around it are these 8 planets. The planets are divided into 2 types according to their composition. The first are rocky planets, and there are 4 of these: Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars. And the second type are underground planets, or giant gas planets, and they include Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. The smallest planet and the closest to the Sun is Mercury, which has the shortest orbit, with a full cycle taking just 3 Earth months. Venus is the second closest, a fiery in our solar system, with a surface temperature of over 463 degrees Celsius, and that's due to its atmosphere, which is dominated by carbon dioxide. It also has massive lava flows on its surface, so not a great place for a holiday. Every world is a water world, our Earth, which is the only planet in the solar system with an environment that can sustain life. The last of these is Mars, which is likely to have hosted some form of life on its surface more than 3.7 billion years ago, due to the existence of ice amid its barren, rocky geography. After the rocky planets, we have the underground planets, or giant planets. They're divided into gaseous planets such as Jupiter and Saturn, which are composed of helium and hydrogen gases, and Uranus and Neptune. They both consist of rocks, ice and liquids in which water, liquid methane and ammonia are present. The largest of the gaseous planets is Jupiter. It's also the largest planet in the solar system and is formed from hydrogen gas and helium. Jupiter is about 788 million kilometers from the Sun and is best known for its huge red spot, which is caused by a continuous storm raging on the planet. The biggest planet after Jupiter is Saturn, which was formed with a high content of hydrogen gas and a small portion of helium. Saturn has 9 rings of ice and dust that revolve around it, giving it a distinctive shape. The average distance between Saturn and the Sun is more than 1.4 billion kilometers, and Saturn takes 29.5 Earth years to finish just one orbit. The next biggest in size are the icy planets Uranus and Neptune. Known as the ice giant, Uranus is the 3rd largest planet in the solar system and the coldest of them all. At 3 billion kilometers from the Sun, the lowest temperature recorded on the planet is a very chilly minus 231 degrees Celsius. Uranus is also known for its oblique rotation at an angle of 90 degrees, and it takes 84 Earth years to orbit the Sun. Finally, on our space journey, we reach the farthest planet, Neptune, which is 4.5 billion kilometers away from the Sun. It takes 165 Earth years to travel around it, and as it spins, it rotates around its axis at 30 degrees. Behind Neptune is a new and modern classification of many planets called dwarf planets, the most famous of which is the planet Pluto. And despite its rotation around the Sun, in 2008 it was decided to exclude it from the solar system, and it was removed from maps.
Nice one there. You are a star.
Oh no, no.
The solar system and all.
I get it.
Oh, never mind.
Thank you very much.
We're back, dear viewers, with this coverage of this wonderful moment in history and with our wonderful guest, Fahad Al-Mhiri. Fahad, thank you very much for staying with us this long. And, of course, here's a question, and a very, very important one. Back in the day, in college, and I don't know if this behavior phenomena, if I could call that, still exists, but parents have high hopes for their children. I want my son to be a doctor. I want my son to be an engineer. But nowadays, see, the search for astronauts, and I've heard our space agency say it, the most important feature in an astronaut is courage. Do you think parents will be brave enough to expect their children to be astronauts?
Well, definitely a tough question. You know, as a father of four myself, you know, I'd definitely be proud. You know, I've got 2 girls and 2 boys, and, you know, it's funny, usually it's the parents pushing, right? I think, alhamdulillah, I'm blessed to the kids that I have. You know, they're pushing back at me. You know, one of them wants to be a doctor, one wants to be an architect. My eldest boy, Baba, he wants to be an engineer. You know, so it's great. You know, students, sort of kids these days, you know, they definitely have ambition. You know, they see what's out there, and they're open to the world. You know, they're open to everything. It's not like it was when we were young. You know, it was so closed, and you basically, you know, had one channel to watch, I guess, in those days. And
yeah, but think about it. Your daughter comes and says, God bless them all for you, Dad, I want to be the first female Emirati astronaut. How would you feel?
Terrified, but at the same time, you know, this is what we're doing right now. You know, we are aspiration and ambition, and the world is changing. You know, it's you just have to be ready for these things today. You know, I'd be proud. I'd be proud, of course, if my kids were to come to me and ask. I'd be afraid for them. I'm sure my wife would probably want to kill me. But
I mean, that's the thing. You know, to be an astronaut, that's like almost like the pinnacle, perhaps. If you want to explore space, but there's so many other amazing, exciting, inventive, creative jobs that people can do. You know, of the 200 engineers and scientists working on the Hope probe, 80% female. Yep. I mean, you know, firstly to have the whole team Emirati, 80% women, just sending a really clear message to young people in this country that, you know, they can achieve absolutely anything they put their minds to. Yeah. And to hear, Faraz was chatting to that young engineer earlier, and she said, you know, nothing is impossible if you work towards it. That is the message that this is sending out.
Yeah, and that again just goes back to the space strategy 2030. We lay these things out. Things are put in paper, which means that this is a dream we have, which means we will work towards it, which means we have studied the gaps, we have studied the status of the UAE today. We are forging the relationships that we need. And because of that, you know, impossible is not impossible anymore, you know. We can get there. It just has to be planned out, and that's what we're doing. So it's been a phenomenal thing that we're doing, studying Mars. You know, we're not the only country doing it. You know, we've got 3 other countries doing it as well during this window, China and the US. And everybody, there's going to be so much more data that's going to be coming if all 3 missions, they, successfully get to Mars and fulfill their missions. There's going to be a ton of data that's going to be available now. And all of those things will help us plan for that Mars 2117 program. Yeah. You know, the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center are looking at setting up a Mars City, you know. It's looking at setting up facilities, labs to be able to do this. You see, one of the main things in the UAE to be able to go where we want to with technology and, you know, the fourth industrial revolution is really about having dedicated R&D centers. Because let's say as an engineer today, I could go and put together a car. Okay, I could get parts, I could integrate everything and put together a car. But who's going to test that? Who's going to validate that? Who's going to verify it? Unless you have testing R&D labs to do those testing and qualifications for you as a third party, there's no way you can progress. So as a country, the focus really is on that. You know, if we want to go into the technology, we want to go into the industry side, the R&D capabilities are the foundation, because that allows us to build, it allows us to find the mistakes, it allows us to progress. And that's how technology really evolves. So, you know, our leadership understand that. And this is where, you know, we have a new minister who's going to be joining now, Her Excellency Sara Al-Amiri. She's going to be our next chairman now of the UAE Space Agency. And, you know, she will bring a whole new, you know, view into it. You know, she's coming from the scientific background, and that's the interest, you know. And so the R&D aspect, I think, will play a pivotal role now moving forward in the space sector, which is vital. It's one of the foundation blocks.
I mean, what I would just say as well about that whole R&D sector and that area is, you know, okay, you set off trying to research how to build an antenna, and you discover a solution to another problem, which you know, sell into another area or create something completely new. And so, you know, it's not just something that's you know, one product that you're making. These things lead to innovations, which, I mean, you know, we've seen innovations over the last sort of 50, 60 years, which have just changed the way we all live our lives and our world. And you just never know what's going to happen with that sort of spark of inspiration.
Correct. And that's the thing. When you have those labs, that's where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about copying somebody else or, you know, or learning from somebody else and then duplicating that. This is now about figuring out the know why I'm going into this and figuring out how to really get into that. And, you know, mistakes that maybe become, you know, a spin-off at the end of the day that become the success than the original project at the end of the day.
Let's stick with the theme of innovation and futures and chat to our next guest now. We're going live to London to chat to Dr. Ina Steenmans, Assistant Professor in Futures Analysis and Policy at the University College London. Ina, can you hear me?
I can hear you fabulously.
It's wonderful to have you on the show. First of all, your reaction to the launch, did you get the chance to?
I did. It was a very emotional moment, I'm sure, for the team. It's incredible what they've achieved.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell us how you came to be involved in the Hope probe, in the Emirates Mars mission, because you've got actual involvement in this program, a research involvement.
That's right. So about a year ago, a group of us at the College London met with the mission team, and we were so interested in hearing about and has used a science mission, a space mission, intentionally to, in the long term, change the future of the UAE, change the foundations for its economy, and specifically to bring in a greater role for science and innovation, as we just actually heard, a greater role for R&D and being able to do new things. And as we were talking, we couldn't help ourselves but ask some really tough questions. Because wondering, you know, it's a great idea, but in practice, can a space mission really be this key to unlock a very different future? And even though Hope is very young, it's only been a few years, what is it that other space missions and what evidence is there of impact on the ground? And then what happened is that the mission team basically said, well, great, we have the same questions, so please can you work with us, or rather, can you independently do an external study of what the value of the Emirates mission to Mars is? And that's what we did, and a few weeks ago we published our findings.
Doctor, you've met some on the ground in the Emirates Mars mission, young people, rather, in training as well, haven't you?
That's right. Actually, we heard about them just before. So the reason why we met a range of people, actually, so both internal to the team, external to the team. We met a lot of the young people who had been engaged either through the school outreach program, so tens of thousands of children have been brought in to get them excited about space, get them excited about science. But we specifically made sure that we met with some of the sponsored research students that we heard about a few minutes ago, because these are young minds who basically been picked and selected and match-made with international space leaders in climate science. And then they spent their summer doing really advanced research projects. They came back with this new knowledge, new skills. And what was really striking about meeting these young researchers is just how thoughtful they were and really how passionate they are in terms of seeing themselves taking on a different kind of role in shaping a future of science within the UAE. It was a really, really great part of the research process.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to meet young people working on any project, especially when they're excited about it. But what did you discover, Doctor? You were tasked with finding out the benefits of the Mars Hope probe. What did you find out? What are we going to see those benefits as over the next few years, do you think?
Well, actually, we heard that normally when we look at the value and the benefits of space missions, we tend to look at things like new jobs, new revenue, or areas of additionality. So where we already have a sector that we're great at, like logistics, and then something new like infrastructure, new skill sets to enhance that. Or we get really excited sometimes when we think about spin out or spill logistics, then creates value for the UAE and its health care and medicine sector. But with the Emirates mission, if we only look there, then you'll actually be missing a huge part of the picture of benefits and value. And that's the societal benefits and the transformative value that's being created. Because this mission is a really intentional piece of the puzzle in terms of radically the national future, economic future of the UAE. And that transformative value, that's actually surprisingly not something that people talk about a lot with space missions. And with the UAE, it's been there from day one. And that's been amazing to collect evidence on and to basically explore just the kind of change that's already been causing.
Edmonds, thank you very much for joining us on this video call, and all the best as well.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And there you hear it, isn't it? That's the, sort of the proof is in the pudding. You know, it's all very well us sort of sitting around and talking about you know, the space program and inspiring young people. We've actually done a scientific research into the benefits of the Hope probe. And I was actually chatting to Dr. Steemans a little bit earlier on before today's program, and she was saying that what they've discovered is actually something that could change the way that other countries approach their own missions, whether it's to Mars, the Moon, wherever it might be, because of the model and what they've learned from this actual mission. And in that sense, it could be completely revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with that. You know, I've seen a few launches, but nothing as inspirational as the way the UAE has put it together, to be honest. You know, it is really there. That is because that was part of the mission. You know.
Can you allow me just for 1 second? We have a guest, and I think it's very tough to keep on hold with us, and that is Dr. Michael Mayer. He is the program scientist for the 2001 Mars Odyssey mission and the senior scientist for astrobiology at NASA. He joins us now from his home in Washington, D.C. Dr. Michael, can you hear us loud and clear?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Ooh, and we can hear you loud and clear. It is crystal. Doctor, as a program scientist, you know that the importance of the mission concept. How important is the Hope probe's mission to get the first complete picture of Mars's seasonal atmospheric cycles? Could you tell us?
You know, Hope is really critical in our quest to understand the climate at Mars. so far that we've been doing with Mars that do polar orbits. We see places on Mars at a particular time of day, or we only see them in one particular place. So now HOPE is able to actually look at Mars synoptically. You can actually get a much better idea of dynamics, see what's going on, not just in one place, but see across the whole globe. So this is just fantastic. The mission is going to really help us fill in a lot of dynamics of the Mars climate.
So we're hoping to get a lot of information from the HOPE probe when it starts to orbit Mars. But how much interest has the scientific community as a whole, but obviously specifically from Mars researchers?
So the scientific community is really interested in, on a broad sense, in looking at Mars and its climate because it has climate. It has an atmosphere like Earth. Earth has an atmosphere, and we understand the climate reasonably well on Earth, but it's all based on models where we can tweak the little parameters, while Mars is very different. And although it has an atmosphere and climate, because it's so different, our models may not work. There are myths about Mars. We can't actually figure out how Mars was warm enough early on to have water on the surface. So there are challenges to understanding Mars climate, even though we think we understand Mars climate, and certainly based on Earth's climate. So what that does is what we learn from Mars with more instruments and looking at synoptically is that feeds back into our understanding of the models that we use for doing climate and actually very specifically help understand Earth's climate.
Let's see. Dr. Michael, the UAE has managed to design and launch HOPE within 6 years. How do you read that when you hear that a project that could be finished in 10 years was done in 6 years? How does that in your profession and expertise?
I thought it was pretty impressive when I first heard about the HOPE mission. What they just started, in 2014 is when they announced the mission, and here it is, we're in 2020, it's launched off the planet, it's taken the first step to Mars. That's a very short time for any mission development, much less the first time that UAE has done an interplanetary mission.
And we just actually heard the first received the first signal from the HOPE probe just a few minutes ago. So that was another key moment. Of course, this first mission, as you said, from the Arab world, what's the impact of that for the space community as a whole?
You know, I think it's one of those things where space exploration very much is a human endeavor. And adding another spacefaring nation to the club, I think, is fantastic because it really makes that exploration even more of a human endeavor instead of just the province of a few nations. I think it's great on an international level. It keeps all of us talking the world in a quest for information as we explore the universe before us.
Dr. Michael, in the last question, we're really interested in your answer and your thoughts. What were your thoughts when what you heard down is going to be an Arab, a new country is joining planetary missions? How did you think about that?
It is very emotional for another nation to be joining in space exploration and to hear the countdown in another language, to know that it's being launched from Japan. I think it's just inspirational on a very human level that others are joining space exploration. And I find that very heartening to know that mission so collaborative, be able to do this and get on the eventually collecting data that's basically everybody would like to know.
Dr. Meyer, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like an absolutely there in Washington, D.C., and it's the dawn of a beautiful morning here in the UAE for us as well, and the UAE space program. So thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yes, thank you indeed, Dr.
Congratulations, UAE, and go Hope.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Such kind words.
Yeah.
That's actually really wonderful to hear that. It is really wonderful. I mean, such an accomplishment. It's wonderful when you can feel happy towards an accomplishment that you've really worked so hard for, and to hear others who are part of that race rejoice with you with that accomplishment. And again, of course, we confirm that we just heard that we've actually heard from the first signal after the probe has launched from Tanegashima Island in Japan. That is another moment. We could say the time has resumed, Marshall, from 1:58.
Another very, very special key moment, and a sign that things are going the way that they should do, that it needs to head in. And I think what you've just said there, Yusuf, is absolutely true. Everybody around the world who's interested in this, whether it's on a sort of a peripheral level or a scientific level, whether they make their living out of the study of Mars and space exploration in general, is you know, very, very impressed so far with what they've seen, and nothing but positivity mission in general.
No, I think that really, you know, goes, you know, towards the vision of our leadership here in the country. I mean, you know, they have taught us to inspire. They have taught the management, the ministers, you know, how to drive this country forward through, you know, their own model and their own behavior. And, you know, that goes to show, and this is why the huge respect that you see from other countries and other nations today. You know, like I said, we've had so many, you know, good luck messages from all different space agency, you know, from Brazil, from US, from Canada today, from the UK, you know, from all the way in Japan as well, from Australia, you know, Washington itself. It's been phenomenal, you know. I mean, just for me being part of this for the last 5 months, just to see how a project like this is bringing the world together, and now to, you know, hear the congratulation messages, and I'm sure there'll be many more to come, you know.
Yeah.
It is, sorry, just, you know, because I don't know what's happening right now. I'm here in the studio with you guys. You guys are hearing that there is some communication.
We've got the earpiece, so we're lucky, so we're just passing, you know, we're just
Thank you, but that just really brings a lot of joy to my heart, because I know that, you know, have we sent out a dead satellite, or, you know, now the fact that it's communicating means that it is following protocol, it is following what it has been programmed to do. Now that means the operations room is going to be busy for the next month, 24 hours a day.
Yep, that's
you
right.
know, getting the information, taking a look at what's happening, correcting any course, taking a look at the systems, making sure everything is nominal, you know, and that thing is going to accelerate then, you know, with the hydrazine, you know, and RCS thrusters and everything to correct anything that it needs to through the star tracker, the sun tracker, on its way. And then the next big thing is the Mars orbit insertion. That is the next big challenge.
You want to know more about the signal, don't you?
Yes. I'll tell you some more in a moment, hopefully. You are watching Dubai One's live coverage of the launch of the UAE Hope probe, which has just sent its first signal back to Earth. And we're going live to Tucson, Arizona now to speak to Nathaniel Putzig, senior scientist at the Planetary Science Institute. Can you hear me? Nathaniel, can you hear me? Well, we seem to be having a little bit of trouble reaching Nathaniel in Arizona right now. I was going to say, Than, we got the signal. What an exciting moment this is. But he didn't get my signal.
Too bad he's going to stay in suspense for a while longer.
Exactly. In just a moment's time. Oh, we might now have him.
Yes.
Than, can you hear me? Tucson, Arizona. Can you hear me? Okay, I think we can hear you, Nathaniel, but unfortunately, sorry, we can't hear you, but you can hear us. And we will try and get in touch with you in a few moments' time. It's just how it happens, isn't it? Signals don't always come across as clearly as we'd like them to.
I would love to say that we are now even.
Absolutely.
So Fahad, this, as of course some of the speakers at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center expressed, it is a roller coaster of emotion. We've been through the whole 9 yards. We've been through the preparation phase, we've been through the delays, and now we're here, and everything we've studied and soaked like a sponge in terms of information has been forgotten. How many signals are we waiting for here?
It is just the one. It's the deal with that. So that allows us to basically ping back and forth, and the communication is there. So, you know, you have the deep space network. So there is the 3 different sites across the world, I believe. Maybe there's actually 2 in the US, 1 in Madrid and 1 in Canberra in Australia. And so these are the ground stations that are actually there that can connect with, you know, distant objects that we send out to go out, not just in LEO and you know, Earth orbit, but further out and, you know, out into Mars and even past that. So, you know, we had to wait until you know, that signal gets there, and it, to me, honestly, it's just a huge... I mean, I just sent Imran Sharaf, the project director, a congratulations message, because that is really when you know that it was a success, you know.
Right here, we're in the studio?
Yes, while the last interview was going on, so...
We said no mobile phones. We made that very clear. No, you're allowed. It was an important message, actually.
We're the ones who are not allowed to have that.
Yeah, exactly.
I needed to have it just in case, God forbid, anything were to happen as well.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah,
you
know, a success till now, you know, so hopefully it's all the way to Mars from now.
Absolutely. Well, in a moment, back to the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, we're going to catch up with Faraz. See what the reaction's been over there. You never know, we might take another look, well, if we're lucky. But we are probably coming very close to the end of our live broadcast here on Dubai 1. The rocket's up. It's gone up. We've received the signal, and we've heard from people all over the world. It's been a very special day, very special morning. What do you think the reaction of... Because not everybody would have been able to stay up and wait and hear... What do you think the reaction will be in the morning?
I also think, before he answers, I think we have Nathaniel Putzik with us. Can he...
Than, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello. It's great to hear from you. Nathaniel, thank you so much for joining us all the way from the United States. Let me ask you this question. You've been involved in a number of Mars missions, including Mars Express and the Mars Global Surveyor. Why is it important, in your view, that we need to research the red planet in so much depth and detail?
Well, I think that the whole quest to send people to Mars is a big driver, actually. I know the United Arab Emirates has a long-term plan to send colonists to Mars, so we need to understand everything we can about it. And the Emirates Mars Mission is going to solve an important piece of the, particularly about the climate as it varies from different times of day.
See, Mr. Nathan, the geology here and climate history of Mars for the last 20 years. Probe discover that we don't already know.
Well, one of the things that we're trying to get a better understanding of is the changes in the atmosphere interact with the surface. In particular, it's like water ice and CO2 ice that freezes out on the surface. And we don't fully understand how that interaction works on an annual basis. So the HOPE probe is going to help those atmospheric elements that interact with the surface, and then we can better understand the whole history of the ices and the layers of ices in the polar caps.
Absolutely. Nathaniel, thank you so much for joining us. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to cut it a little bit short because we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you, but we are going to go over to the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center right now because Faraz Javed, intrepid reporter, and he's going to give us a little bit of update from the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, where there must have been so much action and excitement over the last hour and a half, 2 hours that we've been on air, because other than being right there at the launch site in Japan, that's very much the place to be.
Pretty much, and to be very honest, Ray, I mean, this roller coaster is really high, and it takes a time until it goes down, and you can give your rejoiceful screams. First it was the launch, and then you wait for that signals. You wait for the signal, basically. Yeah. So now, the man of the hour for us is Faraz, coming back to us with all of this information. Let's see, Faraz, live with us from the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Now that we have gotten a signal, can you tell us what is the mood there? What do we have? What can you give us and relate to us for us? I think
he was looking at his tie, and Faraz, if it helps you, reassures you in any way, shape or form, your tie looks great, your whole outfit looks great, and so is your report. We'll come back to you as soon as we possibly can. It's not always easy, this communication business, is it? Should we give it another try?
I'm beginning to think it is personal.
I'm sure. Try him again. Try him again.
All right, going to Faraz, who is live at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center.
There you go, guys. Once again, the UAE's first interplanetary mission is on the successful launch Space Center in Japan to the separation, and of course the connection that was just established a moment ago between the probe and Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. So it's official, the UAE Hope probe is on its way to Mars, and of course in 7 months' time the humanity will reap the benefits for many, many years to come, and on a personal level we'll always cherish this moment to be part of this historical moment. And of course I'm Instagramming a lot of pictures that I've taken, so for now myself, Faraz Javed, and my team, Mahir Abu Drawi and Mohammed Yahya, it's bye for now. But Ray and Yusuf, I'll catch you guys at the breakfast table. Till then, take care, and of course, good morning.
He's not lying, you know. He will be Instagramming it. He'll be Instagram. He's probably been Instagramming already.
And he's not wrong. We will be catching up. But I think we have a couple of minutes here. Yeah. So, of course, we have to, of course, give you our utmost appreciation for being with us here in the studio. And we got to know if you have any message for the people out there on this historic day for us.
Well, I'd personally like to just send out a message to the Mars Mission team, to the EMM team. You know, personally, I've seen what they've been through, and I'm so proud of the team. You know, I'm sure they're, you know, the leadership is proud. I'm sure the whole world and the whole country is proud of what they've achieved here. You know, we even have one of our engineers who has held back getting married, and you know, it was all about we'll get married after the launch. So you know, that is something.
You've got to have your priorities straight, haven't you? I think in this case that was the right thing to do.
Thank you very much for this, Fahad, and congratulations to you, congratulations to the UAE and to the Arabic nation, and congratulations to you as well, Ray.
Oh, thank you very much.
Married,
heavily involved.
You know, it was all about we'll get married.
This is a wrap-up, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching us on this exclusive coverage. Remember this date, remember this moment, and we will see you on next coverages and episodes. And keep waiting for those 7 beautiful months. To you, congratulations to the UAE and to the Arabic nation, and congratulations to you as well, Ray.
Oh, thank you very much. Heavily involved.
This is a wrap-up, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching us on this exclusive coverage. Remember this date, remember this moment, and we will see you on next coverages and episodes. And keep waiting for those. Congratulations to you, congratulations to the UAE and to the Arabic nation, and congratulations to you as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is a wrap-up, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching us on this exclusive coverage.
skies to moving the ocean. You have achieved it all. It's time to aim at the clouds will move away. Your dreams are real. Your talents are many.